can't always depend on Steve Bannon to give the whole game away. Recently, he attended a Conservative Partnership Institute event where he gave a speech. In that speech, he mentioned that if they, the Republicans, lost the midterm elections in 2026, some people in that room, the room of people he was speaking to, including himself, would find themselves in jail. Boy, he has a knack for saying the quiet parts out loud. Now, this is the same guy who did an interview a couple of years ago, or maybe it was just last year, talking about the Bone Spurs administration and how if Bone Spurs got back into office, he advised them to do rapid fire changes so that not only would people not be able to keep up with everything that the Bone Spurs administration was doing, but they also would find themselves fatigued and it would be harder for them to fight. Sound familiar? And this also isn't the first time that he has said that Bone Spurs would find himself in prison if the Republicans lost the midterm elections in 2026. He also said that on his War Room podcast in March, where he said that Bone Spurs would find himself in jail like Bolsonaro of Brazil. Bannon went on to say in that recent speech that the Democrats would seek to remove Bone Spurs if they won the midterms. So the midterms for the Republicans essentially started last Tuesday night when they got trounced with how the Republicans are handling the shutdown. The Democrats proposed to reopen the government if the ACA subsidies were funded for 1 year. The Republicans voted no on that immediately. And Bannon praised that decision by the Republicans, saying that if they don't do it now, aka if they don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act now, then they will lose their chance forever because they are never going to get another Bone Spurs. Now, Bannon has been one of the main voices for trying to circumvent or just completely ignore the 22nd Amendment, which limits the president to only 2 terms. He has been in interviews where they have talked about that, and when people say, how are you guys going to get around the Second Amendment? He will smile deviously and say things like, we're working on it. I kid you not. But this tells me one thing, that Bannon understands that Bone Spurs is their only vehicle to getting done what they want to get done, to get them to a place where it can't be easily undone when Bone Spurs finally gets up out of here. And he is essentially telling us the plans, not only because he believes that they can't be stopped, but also as a warning for the GOP to get their butt in gear to do what they need to do to win the midterm elections. He is basically reminding them of the stakes, which completely explains why Bone Spurs and Elonia Muskrat are on an off again, on again, off again, back on again relationship, where supposedly they have been rekindling after seeing each other at the memorial service that they held in Glendale, Arizona for Kirk. Now, why in the world would Bone Spurs, after everything that Elonia Muskrat said when he was pissed off, why in the world would Bone Spurs want to rekindle the relationship he has with Elonia Muskrat? Bone Spurs is not a loyal person, but he does understand his assets. And it seems like he might want a repeat of 2024. We have 1 year until the midterms. Democrats had an amazing night last Tuesday, but it is not time to rest. The campaigns for the midterms need to be starting now. The preparations for the midterms need to be starting now. We already know that the Republicans are pushing their pieces around because they know what the stakes are. And we need to understand that if we don't win back control in the 2026 midterm elections, we might not have another chance. Steve Bannon is telling you point blank what they are going to do. And reading the tea leaves with Bone Spurs and Elonia Muskrat should be making our spidey senses tingle a little. Last Tuesday was one battle. The next massive showdown is going to be in November 2026.
And I will tell you right now, as God is my witness, if we lose the midterms and we lose 2028, some in this room are going to prison, myself included. They're not going to stop. They are getting more and more and more radical. And we have to counter that. And what do we have to counter it with? We have to counter it with more action, more intense action, more urgency. We're burning daylight. If you look across every aspect of this, we have to codify what President Trump has done by executive order. Right? We have to codify it. And people say, well, they're just going to be messing bills and pay Senate. We got to put aside these structural barriers and get on with it. President Trump today gave to the Senate when they came over for breakfast. Even Lindsey Graham, some of the guys he liked, and some of these institutions, I understand. This is a very tough decision to make. And you're going to see some people in the conservative movement that not in a million years, because I talked to him today, quite frankly, I had Hawley on the show this morning, Josh Hawley, and he's talking about it, and I'm trying to play the institution. Well, they called me up this afternoon and said, let's go through the 10 reasons we need to do it, and these are heavy hitters on what I would call the constitutional, limited government constitutionalist in our movement. And they're about to come out over the next couple of days and make this argument because it said, look, we have to understand that if we don't take this to the maximum, a maximalist strategy now with a sense of urgency, and in doing this, seize the institutions, if we don't do that now, we're going to lose this chance forever because you're never going to have another Trump, right? You're just not going to have it.